Superhero movies aren't always the best quality films, but usually even the worst ones have some kind of upside, like a good villain, cool costume design, or a good love story. But then there's Fantastic Four 2015, or Fant4stic. At least that's how they spelled it, and frankly, it's the least of this movie's problems. Released in 2015, this wasn't just a bad movie. It took Marvel's first family, a comic book legacy built on bright colors, cosmic wonder, and tight-knit family dynamics, and tried turning it into a cross between a depressing body horror film and a dark, grounded sci-fi. First, let's look at why this movie was made in the first place. Hint, it wasn't because of a burning creative desire to tell a great story. It was corporate panic. Back in the day, Marvel sold off the film rights to their characters to survive bankruptcy. Fox got the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, but there was a catch in the contract. If Fox didn't put a Fantastic Four movie into production every 7.5 years, the rights would automatically revert back to Marvel. Although the mid-2000s duology starring Iwan Gruffudd and Jessica Alba was a box office success, both movies underperformed critically. And after Rise of the Silver Surfer, plans for a third film were scrapped, and the franchise was dead in the water. But Fox refused to give the rights back to Marvel. They needed a reboot, and they needed it fast just to keep the IP in their vault. Enter Josh Trank. He had just directed Chronicle, a low-budget found-footage sci-fi movie about teenagers gaining superpowers and losing their minds. It was grounded, it was dark, and it was a massive hit. Fox thought, perfect. Let's make the Fantastic Four gritty and realistic like Christopher Nolan did with Batman. Because when you think of a comic book about a stretchy man, a rock monster, a flaming teenager, and an invisible woman fighting a dictator in a metal mask, you think, wow, I hope this is as bleak and joyless as possible. Before we even look at the plot, let's look at the damage report. The movie received a staggering 9% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 27 on Metacritic. Fox's budget was somewhere between $120 and $155 million and clawed its way to $167 million worldwide at the box office. They lost an estimated $80 to $100 million on this project. But the real disaster was happening behind the camera. The production of Fantastic Four is legendary for being a total war zone. Reports circulated of Josh Trank behaving erratically on set, isolating himself in a black tent, and pulling his cast away from the studio executives. Meanwhile, Fox executives panicked when they saw Trank's assembly cut, which was reportedly a slow-burn, sci-fi body horror drama, and decided to completely take over the movie. It got so bad that the day before the movie released, Trank literally tweeted out, "A year ago, I had a fantastic version of this, and it would have received great reviews. You'll probably never see it. That's reality, though." He basically told the entire world, hey, don't watch my movie, the studio ruined it. Career suicide? Absolutely, but was he wrong? Probably not. The pacing of this movie is an absolute disaster. A standard superhero origin movie has 3 acts. Act 1 introduces the characters and gives them their powers by the end of the act. Act 2 lets them deal with the consequences, learn how to use the powers, and introduces the villain. Finally, the third act gives us the big final battle and the aftermath. Fantastic Four ignores this entirely. It spends nearly 50 minutes of its 100-minute runtime on an origin story that feels like an aggressively boring documentary about the aerospace industry. We watch Reed Richards and Ben Grimm grow up, we watch them attend science fairs, and then we watch them get recruited by the Baxter Foundation. Once they're at the Baxter Foundation, the movie grinds to a complete halt. We spend what feels like an eternity watching Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Victor tinker with a quantum gate. And they don't even give us a big moment where they finally finish building it. Reed just casually tells Victor it's ready and goes to bed.
We're finished.
What?
Yeah, we finished it. Do you want to see?
Yeah.
What about the characters? Well, they have zero chemistry. Because the script is so obsessed with keeping everything grounded and realistic, it strips away the playfulness that makes the Fantastic Four great. Reed is just a nerd in a lab coat. Sue is a cold, distant researcher. Johnny doesn't even want to be there, he just wants his car back. And Ben hasn't even met the other two. There is no joy, no banter, and no feeling that these four people actually like each other or even know each other, including Sue and Johnny, who are supposed to be siblings. In this case, for some reason, they made Sue adopted. But we barely get to see these two interact. There's no relationship between them. Something the Tim Story films did really well and is almost non-existent in this movie. Anyway, they finally go to Planet Zero. And even this is a letdown. For a movie about discovering another dimension, the planet is just dark, bland, really disappointing. They get out to explore the planet, and Victor decides to stick his hand in the glowing green lava stuff which causes the planet to explode on them. Even this felt pretty underwhelming. There's no cosmic awe, just a stupid, unexplained accident. They get back to Earth and wake up in a military base being examined. And then the movie literally cuts to 1 year later. They skip the entire second act. We don't get to see them figure out their abilities. We don't get to see them bond as a team. We just cut to them being used as government weapons. We are robbed of the most important part of any superhero origin story. The movie does all of this off-screen, leaving us with a group of miserable, disconnected soldiers who don't even seem to want to be together. Oh, and Reed Richards, the leader of the group, Mr. Fantastic himself, disappears and no one sees him for a whole year. And then we get to Toby Kebbell's Doctor Doom. I think this was actually a great casting, but the character was terribly executed. We finally get to see Victor as Doctor Doom when the military find him still alive when they go back to Planet Zero. This happens almost 80 minutes into the movie that is only 100 minutes long. They introduce the villain with 20 minutes of the movie left, and he looks like this. Doctor Doom is one of the greatest, most menacing villains in comic book history, and this is the best they can give us. His motivations make zero sense. He returns from Planet Zero, decides he hates Earth, walks through the military base killing everyone, and then builds a giant blue sky beam on Planet Zero to destroy Earth. The final battle lasts roughly 8 minutes and is very disappointing. After it's established that Doom is almost invincible, that they can't beat him, they defeat him within seconds by punching him into his own energy beam with one hit and forcing in its clobbering time.
It's clobbering time!
Shortly after the lackluster fight, the movie ends right as they decide on a name in one of the most infamous superhero scenes ever.
Gotta say, it's fantastic.
Say that again?
Because the studio hacked the movie apart and ordered massive reshoots without the director's involvement, the final 30 minutes of the film is a disaster. And the ultimate proof of this is Kate Mara's hair. During the initial shoot, Kate Mara had her normal hair. Months later, during the rushed studio reshoots, she had cut her hair for another role. So Fox bought her a wig. A terrible synthetic party store blonde wig that shifts shapes from scene to scene. You can literally track which scenes were shot by Trank and which ones were mandated by Fox executives just by looking at Sue Storm's head. Most of the time, I can find something positive even in the deepest pits of cinema. And to be perfectly fair, Fantastic Four does have a few genuinely good elements hidden under the studio interference. First of all, the cast is incredible on paper. Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, and Jamie Bell are all phenomenal actors. And apart from bad writing and dialogue, were pretty good. Even Miles Teller, who I originally thought was a bad casting for a science nerd, was pretty decent. When the movie lets them just talk and act like actual human beings in the first half of the movie, there is a glimmer of a really compelling indie-style sci-fi drama. Second, the body horror sequence immediately following their accident was well done. Reed waking up on a gurney, looking over to see his legs stretched across the room, while Ben Grimm screaming in agony, trapped inside a shell of living rock. Johnny freaking out and almost setting fire to the lab. For about 5 minutes, Josh Trank's vision of superpowers being a curse actually works. The failure of Fantastic Four caused Fox to immediately cancel the planned sequel. A few years later, Disney bought 20th Century Fox entirely, meaning the rights to the Fantastic Four were finally back home to Marvel Studios. Without this movie being a historic, unmitigated disaster, we might not be getting the MCU's version of the characters today. It had to die so that the franchise could eventually live. So, is Josh Trank's Fantastic Four the worst superhero movie ever made? Honestly? No, it's terrible, but it's not the worst. Movies like Catwoman and Madam Web are completely unwatchable from the first frame to the last. Fantastic Four is something far more tragic. It's half of a potentially interesting dark sci-fi movie that was completely ruined by studio executives and then attempted to be stitched back together. It really makes you wonder what it could have been if everyone got out of the way and just let Josh Trank do his thing. Maybe it could have been as good as he says, or maybe just as bad.
Say that again?